Greetings all, and welcome to another Tale of Woe. I'm your storyteller Tim, and today we continue our Tales in Ravenloft. If you recall in the last episode, the group had managed to free the town of Vallaki from the oppressive hand of the Burgermeister, and were now regarded as heroes and saviors of the town. But as things are in Ravenloft, things were not all sunshine and rainbows. In fact, there was no sunshine, or rainbows for that fact. So the group basically spent, in game time at least, a couple of weeks of downtime, just getting to know the townsfolk, getting their equipment done. I believe Nuru actually got herself a special mask made from the skull of one of the direwolves that she managed to kill in the town, and also got a special saddle made out of the hide. So she now had her zombie elephant all fully decked out, and she had her death skull mask. They also spent their time getting to know the new members of their party, Selena and Give. During this time, unfortunately, the player for Eris had to duck out again, so her character became dimensionally unstable and just faded away. But the rest of the group were able to carry on as normal. Basically, the next hook that they came across, and one of the things I actually quite liked about this book is it gives you developments. And one of the developments that it lists after the Wizards of Wine Winery is Winter Splinter and Baba Lysaga and her Scarecrows invading the winery. And because the group from the winery, or the family from the winery, I should say, had moved into the town, they were attempting to basically regrow their vineyard. Actually, one of the things that had happened also in downtime was that Wallflower had reclaimed the area where the Burgermeister's mansion was. Because it had been completely destroyed, they actually got Stampy to knock the rest of the building down, and then Wallflower, doing her druid craft thing, actually reclaimed that area. And so they were attempting to basically make a new vineyard in the town of Vallaki. But the one thing that they needed, which became their next quest item, at least one of their next quest items, were the magic stones in the center of the vineyard. So they were sent off to retrieve them. They also made a detour because on the way to the town, to the vineyard, there is actually another town which holds the Abbey of Saint Markovia. So they stopped in there just to basically see what was what, and didn't really find a great deal. They did meet the abbot, who was a very strange person, and they didn't investigate too far, otherwise I probably wouldn't have trusted him with what happened next. But also while in town, Give procured himself a horse, I believe, or that might have come later. But regardless, they set out from that town the next day after having a long rest, and that evening they made their way to the remains of the vineyard. And the one thing that they noticed immediately is that the road had been completely grown over with these black plants that reminded them of the blights. Wallflower had actually acquired from one of the druids a magical staff known as a Golthus staff. Now, in order to get out of fighting these things, one thing they can do is actually snap the staff, which lets out a loud sound, and it kills all blight-related creatures within a certain radius. which they didn't need to do because they were actually quite successful in their fight the last time. So she had this staff, and because the creatures that were being controlled by these druids responded to this staff, I actually had it so that because these plants were literally more blights, but I had it so unless they attacked them directly, they were friendly to her, so she was able to make them part, just sort of like parting the seas like Moses with her golfer's staff. One of the side effects of this stuff, however, it's a very interesting magical item. It's a lot of fun because it has like 1 to 10 charges per day, I believe, and when you hit someone with it in close combat, you can regain hit points equal to the damage that you do. Unfortunately, it also leaks sap out of it, and if you fail a wisdom save, you suffer a small point of insanity, like an insanity that lasts like I think 10 minutes or so, something like that. Whatever the short-term insanity or short-term madness results are. So it has its positives and it has its negatives. Wallflower had actually succumbed to the madness in a previous combat in the windmill and ended up fighting, having to attack whoever was closest to her for the next minute. So she was actually a threat to Nuru in that fight, but they managed to get out of that one okay. When they made it through the plants and were able to approach the vineyard, they noticed that the winery, which once stood very prominently on the hilltop, had been completely destroyed. It was no longer there, and the ground had been all ripped up. All the vines had been, all the vines for the vineyard, I should say, sorry, had been, completely demolished. The place had just been destroyed. But what they did find there were a bunch of scarecrows, and this comes into the development stage. If they had have gone there sooner, then they would have found the winery still standing and these scarecrows weren't there, but because they spent so long getting there, this is what they find. Basically, they approach the center of the vineyard, and basically once they get to the middle of the vineyard, all hell breaks loose. The scarecrows begin to slowly make their way towards them. And scarecrows in the game have a really nasty ability. Basically, they have like a paralyzing vision. They can look at someone, and if they fail a save, they're paralyzed. They cannot move. They're like stricken with fear, and they can't move. They just get wailed on by the other creatures. So everyone gets surrounded by these scarecrows, and the fight immediately goes bad. Wallflower wails on one of the scarecrows that had actually injured her, hits it, absorbs some of its life points back, gets the insanity check, and instantly gets the fear result, meaning that she has to run away for the next minute from whatever it was that caused the fear. So basically the scarecrow. So she's terrified of the fight. She's gone. She's out. She's worthless in this fight. Can't use her. Nuru gets hit by the stun effect and is constantly hit by the stun effect over and over and over again. So she's useless in the fight, and she gets absolutely slammed by these things. Selena and Give fare quite a bit better, but by the time the fight is done, Nuru had actually gone down. Willard had come out of the ring again, but then even his ability brings her back up to 1 hit point and then starts firing off random effects. But if she takes a hit, loses that hit point, she's out, and she failed all 3 of her death saves. Nuru was dead. She was out of the fight. So that was the party's first major loss in the game. And it didn't end there, because after they defeated the scarecrows, they managed to make their way to the center of the vineyard. They went to retrieve these 3 stones, but they only found one of the stones. The other 2 were missing. They found the holes where these stones were, and 2 of them were gone. One of them was still there. So they grabbed the one that they had, and they began to make their retreat. And I remember one of the things that it actually states is that the evil tree ent, which was actually somewhat down the road, makes an appearance during this moment here. And I described it very similarly to the T-Rex in Jurassic Park. They just start hearing, and everyone starts panicking. They're like, all right, we start running. And I just keep making the noise. I don't let up on the sound effects. And then I say, ripping through, they see this giant tree monster, and it begins tear-assing towards them. So they just start. They've got Nuru up, Geeve's got Nuru up on his shoulders, and they're running, and they manage to call forth Stampy, and the fight is on. They're basically having a running fight on the back of Stampy. But at one point, they decide, you know what, screw it. They turn the elephant around and they start ramming this tree end. And this is where the elephant really proves itself, because this zombie elephant managed to completely obliterate, with the help of the party, of course, but with some pretty fantastic trampling attacks, managed to take down Winter Splinter. And due to the attack and the fact of what was bringing Winter Splinter to life, they were able to retrieve the second stone. I didn't actually expect them to win the fight. I thought because I'd set it up so that Winter Splinter would only pursue them a certain distance away. But they decided to turn and fight, and their bravery was rewarded. So after that fight, they returned back to the Abbey of St. Markovia and attempted to have Nuru raised back to life. Which I think I'll save that tale for the next Tale of Woe.